Welcome to the Weekend Booktopian, our weekly podcast where we talk about book news and the books that we have been reading and enjoying. My name is Nick Wasiliev and I am the social media specialist here at Booktopia. And joining me for today's episode is Arthur Malkoun, the affiliate marketing manager. Hi, Arthur.
Hi, Nick.
Ashleigh Berry, our campaign coordinator. Hi, Ash.
Hey.
And Mark Harding, our brand and content manager and usual host. Hi, Mark.
Get out of my seat.
Oh, I'm happy. I'm enjoying it. I mean, I have all the power. But today, as we'll be obviously giving you our normal book recommendations, and then, of course, you stick around till the end where my guests will go head-to-head in an increasingly terrifying, exciting, and some might say violent game that is Book Fight. But beforehand, we're doing something a little bit different. Now, we are currently recording this podcast during the time of Booktober, which Booktopia is really proud to be involved in. And we are working with Westwords. And you can sign up as a bookworm and fundraise to help disadvantaged kids in the greater Western Sydney region. And Mark, so for our new segment, you sat down with James Roy, the producer of Westwords, to discuss the initiative, didn't you?
Yes, that's right. So I had a nice little chat with James Roy, who is a published and established author in his own right, and is also and also works for Westwords, developing programs that get delivered to students across Greater Western Sydney. So why don't we have a listen to that chat?
Joining us today on the Weekend Booktopian is James Roy. Hi, James. Welcome to the show.
Hey, how are you? Thank you.
So could you tell us a little bit about your career and the books that you've written?
Well, my career began back in the bad old days of the mid-90s, sort of back in the era of Justin Etler writing The River Ophelia and all that sort of dark, gritty literature, the sort of grit lit as they called it. But I thought that's what I was writing, but in actual fact, I was writing young adult. And at the time, I kind of felt that, like a lot of people do, that young adult and children's is what you do while you're practicing to be a real writer for grown-ups. I, of course, now don't believe that to be the case and will actively take on anyone who dares to say that, but it was a view that I did hold. And so when I sent my first book off to University of Queensland Press in the mid-90s, they immediately came back and said, we've given this to our young adult publisher, and she's very interested in it. And I was a bit sort of, oh, really? I thought I'd written a real book. Anyway, never mind. But then I very quickly came to understand that because of my own background growing up as a missionary kid back in places like Fiji and Papua New Guinea, my creative or I was in a bit of a state of arrested development, I guess, and I hadn't really ever moved past that period of life between year 5 and year 10. That was sort of where I kept going back to in my own head. And so I entirely embraced the idea of writing for children and young adults. And so up till now, I've written, I think, 35 books, and they've all been for young adults or children. I'm working on a grown-up book at the moment, as they say, but everything that I've written really that's been published to any kind of, in any kind of recognition has been for young adult or children's.
Excellent. We're huge advocates for young adult novels here at Booktopia. We have several staff members who can't get enough, and we'll talk at length in our podcasts about them. And always.
Well, there was sorry to interrupt. There was a I don't know if it's still the case because I don't really go to those places anymore. But back in not that long ago, there was a huge outbreak of disagreement amongst a lot of people about whether people should be allowed to just read YA because they like reading YA. And there's a bit of a shaming going on in some circles against people who wrote YA, which I always found a bit confusing and a bit mystifying, especially when you consider that, if they were published today, Romeo and Juliet, Hamlet, Great Expectations, Pride and Prejudice, all these books would probably be published as young adult because they are exactly about what young adults go through, the sense of identity confusion and where they fit in the world and all those sorts of things and so forth. So it sort of always left me a little bit confused when people would say, oh, why do you read young adult? What's in that for you? Well, everything is in that for me.
Yeah, Can you tell us a little bit about your involvement with Westwords?
Oh, with Westwords? Well, I started off on the board of Westwords some years back, and then I went and did my creative writing masters at Sydney Uni, and for some reason stopped writing shortly after, and went off and worked in a music shop. Worked as the director of the manager of the drum department for a couple of years, and didn't write anything. And then one day, Michael from Westwords contacted me and said, "We've had a position come up for program manager at Blue Mountains and Blacktown program manager with a hot desk at Blacktown Library. So is that something you'd like to do 2 or 3 days a week?" And so I did do that and started to work in that role, just basically developing programs for what Westwords does, which is literature development in schools and for people who want to be writers and people who are developing writers and so forth. And then more recently, a position became available to be the full-time producer. So I work alongside Michael, our executive director, basically overseeing the way that we run programs right across Western Sydney, which is, it's a huge area. It's 2.5 million people. A tenth of Australia's population lives out this way. It's a vast geographical space with something like people from almost 200 different countries speaking almost 100 different languages. So it's a pretty vast undertaking, and there's always something there to keep us busy, for sure.
Why do you think the mission of Westwords is so important?
This is something we've been having a bit of a discussion with in the office recently, because a lot of organisations, it's very easy to put on their billboard what they do. If you're a football club, basically what you do is you try and win football premierships, and everything, the membership and all that, all leads into this one ultimate goal, which is to be the best football club in that code. Whereas what we do is a little bit broader than that. It's a bit more like we're a needs-based organisation. So really, we wait until people tell us what they require, what they feel they need, and then we find the best people to deliver that. So we're working in schools, we're working in, as I say, we're working with developing writers, offering fellowships and partnerships with places like Varuna and Western Sydney University and so forth. But really what we think we're here to do, and what we believe we're here to do, is not to tell anyone else's story, but rather to provide people with the necessary tools to tell their own stories in the best way they can. So it's not about appropriating, it's not about telling someone else's story. It's really about, as I say, filling that toolbox with the best tools, and they're all delivered by people who are practicing artists in some way or another.
Now, we're in the midst of the Booktober campaign, which is Westwords fundraiser. Are you signed up as a bookworm? And if so, how many books are you reading or planning to get to this month?
If it was held in about 9 weeks' time, I reckon I'd probably be signing up for I don't know, 20 books or something for over the holiday period. At the moment, my to-read list is probably in the 5 or 6 pile, but I'm hoping to get through 10 in the time. I know that's not a lot, but I've just come. You've got to give me a break here. I've just come out of judging a pretty big literary award where we had something like 150 young adult novels to read. So I really wish that Booktober had been Booktember, because I think I would have probably knocked off 150 in that time. Would have raised truckloads of cash. But anyway.
Well, if Michael's listening to this, then take that note for next year, Booktember.
Booktember, yeah, totally. That would work. Yeah.
And can you let us know how people can donate or otherwise get involved in Booktober or Westwords more broadly?
Well, I think the best way, you can either go to our website, and we recommend everyone do that anyway, westwords.com.au, and there's links and tags and so forth. But if you just go to booktober.org.au, then all the information is there, and on how to sign up as a bookworm or how to donate. And all donations are welcome, because the thing about what we do is that we're very passionate about putting good literature in the hands of everyone. And of course, kids are huge part of that, and that's what Booktopia is all about, is putting books in the hands of kids, and the best books, actually, not just books. There's plenty of books out there, but good books. So yeah, I think the website's probably the best place you could go. Or if you have other questions you need to ask someone in person, you can go to 1-800 Westwords, and we'll answer the phone and let you know what you can do.
Fantastic. James Roy, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us today. We really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Right, so that's the end. So that is the end of our chat with James Roy, and a lot of fantastic discussion there around the Booktopia initiative. So if you want to sign up, you can head to Westwords website or booktopia.org.au and become a bookworm and help fundraise to help disadvantaged kids in the greater Western Sydney region. So with that in mind, we'll now jump into our book recommendations for the week and the books that we've been reading and enjoying. And I'm going to throw to you first, Arthur. What have you been reading in the last week or so?
So I've been reading Jerry Seinfeld's book, Is This Anything? So I was obviously very much looking forward to that when that was first announced, and it was actually a really good read. So basically, the title in itself, so Is This Anything, refers to a sentence basically that comedians often ask each other when they're sanity checking their jokes to one another. They'll go to each other and say, "Is this anything? Is this good? Is this going to get laughs?" But more or less, essentially, the book is a collection of Jerry's best bits and his greatest material that he would scribble down and write, the things that would come to him over the years, and covers quite an extensive range of different topics, from the airport to marriage to the thermostat to parents, and basically every little minutia of his life. The covers actually starts from the 70s all the way through to now. Basically, he's been collecting all these bits of material over the years, and what I really liked about it is how, especially some of the jokes from the 70s and the 80s, how timeless some of it is, how it can still apply to today. It's really quite remarkable. His material is quite timeless, really. It's quite amazing. And I was even happy to realize as I was reading some of them that a lot of these bits actually made it into the Seinfeld show, which obviously one of my favorite shows, one of the biggest comedy influences for me in my formative years, still is, quite frankly. I think it's one of the best shows ever. It was so good to see how much of that earlier material actually made it into the show.
Can you read us a joke, Arthur? Can you do it in the Seinfeld voice?
I cannot. I mean, I can try, but I will feel miserably, and yeah.
Does the book? It was like the book. I'm assuming the book would give you a really solid indication of like his actual writing process and creative process.
Yeah,
if you see the early books.
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, before every decade has a bit of an intro, just to give you an idea of, I suppose, what Jerry was, what he was going through at that time, or what his, so obviously in the 70s he was just starting out, he was breaking into the routine. 80s and the 80s focuses more on him getting a bit more attention. Obviously 90s is heavily focusing on Seinfeld, and the 2000s is a lot of what he refers to as doing nothing. Quite funny. Funny. Like, yeah, there's a lot of great material in here. I'm trying to find something that's short and sweet to read out. But
I have a question for you, Arthur.
Yes, Sash.
As a Seinfeld fan, as you've said, so you said the book is a lot of material and things you've potentially heard before on Seinfeld. But as a fan, did you learn anything new about him?
Well, interestingly, you can tell that his life shapes the kind of material he's writing. So the earlier work, a lot of it is very observational, very stuff that a single person would maybe joke about and talk about. And as you get further on into the book, he starts talking more about marriage, and his material sort of shifts. It's more marriage focused, relationship focused. Yeah, it's very interesting. It says a lot about him and what his priorities were at the time. Through each decade, what he was thinking about, what he found funny during those particular times. I thought, there's a really good one here that I thought was quite funny. So there's a bit he does about pajamas, and he goes, "I don't know why the suit projects this image of power. Why is it intimidating? We'd better do that. We'd better do what that guy says. His pants match his jacket. Men love the suit so much, we've actually styled our pajamas to look like a tiny suit. Three buttons down the front, the little lapels, breast pocket. What's that for? You put a pencil in there, roll over in the middle of the night, you kill yourself." Because it's a really good point, and you never think of that, but it's true. We to put pajamas, they do. They're like, it's like a suit, and it's true. What's the button? What's the pocket for? Who is that for? What's the benefit of that? Genius.
Genius. I love it. Oh my, that sounds like an amazing book. Love it. Great one, Arthur. And I'll throw now over to Ash. What have you been in the depths of book-wise?
Yeah, so I have two books I want to talk about today. One I'm currently reading and one I want to read next. So the one I'm currently reading, it's a few years old. It's actually been on my to-be-read pile for about 10 years. And I am absolutely kicking myself that I haven't read it before now. It is The Name of the Wind.
Oh my God.
Patrick Rothfuss. I know. I thought you might be a fan, Mark. Have you read it?
I have, yeah.
Oh, I cannot believe it took me this long.
But the second one's been on my shelf for years, so I've only read the first one.
Oh, okay. Well, this is what I mean. I think at the speed I'm reading it now, I should be into the sequel on the weekend. So I'm just past halfway, and I love it. It's so good. I can't believe I've just let it sit there for years. That I've existed in the same room as it for years and just have not read it. So to summarize, I've brought up a summary. This is the tale of a magically gifted young man who grows to be the most notorious wizard the world has ever seen. So it's a fantasy fiction. I'm a big fan of, but I want to read more of this genre. So, I mean, you Google best fantasy books. This book is literally third on the list in Google after The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit.
Wow.
And it's incredible. The writing style is just, I think poetic is a word that's used to describe it, but it's just, you feel like you're there. Like, this is a story I'm currently reading about, a boy learning to be a wizard right now. And I relate to him in a weird way. I'm consuming it nonstop right now.
It's always good.
It's such an immersive book, and what I love about it is it's like 1,100 pages or something, and it just you don't notice once you start reading it, you just forget, and it's just like you are just in that world with those characters, and it's just incredible.
It is, yeah. I should try and find a comparison. Someone who works here, Paolo, he's read this. He described The Name of the Wind, I'm pretty sure, as Harry Potter in the Philosopher's Stone. And then the sequel is like Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, It's kind of that contrast where the first ones are really kind of educational. You learn the world as the character is learning the world and learning his abilities and trying to comes up against magical foes and schoolmates who want to make an enemy out of him. And you kind of grow through the hardships with him. Like, he had a really tough start of life. And from that phrasing, I'm very excited to get into the sequel, and then we probably get into the real crux of it.
Well,
yeah, that is.
I was reading something the other day about the third one, and how it's like the new Game of Thrones book. It's just been coming for a very, 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 very long time, and like Patrick Rothfuss is like not committing to like when anything's going to be finished, and the speculation that maybe he won't, and it's just
So a third book in this.
Yeah. It's meant to be a trilogy.
Oh, okay.
Oh my goodness, I'm
That's a
gonna get
bit
off.
frustrating. Yeah, do it. If any little part of you likes fantasy, like just the tiniest little bit, I reckon read it.
Yeah. And fun trivia note: Lin-Manuel Miranda of Hamilton fame bought the rights to do a extended adaptation.
No way!
That.
Oh, that would be
It
amazing.
will be. It will be. I'm sure he's very busy and we'll never get to it, but
It's my absolute dream. Like, I'm a big fan, I think I mentioned before, of the Rift War saga, especially Magician by Feist. And it's my dream to see that. I don't think it's ever been really brought to life. And I don't know if it ever could be because of the scope, but it's my dream to see that. So I'm only halfway through this, and all I want is to just see some visual entity of this.
Slight tangent, but have you read Robert Jordan's Wheel of Time series?
No. No. I've got The Eye of the World in my pile. I have a big fantasy pile back there that I need to get through, but they're all like 1,000 pages.
Because a certain streaming service that we're not allowed to name on this show has adapted that, and the first season is going to be out next year, I think.
Everything's going to be out next year. I just read Foundation by Isaac Asimov.
Yes, yeah.
That's how you say it. So I've got the first 3 books published. So I just read Foundation prior to this. That's coming out next year, apparently, too.
That's going to be so cool.
I don't have time for this.
I know, right?
Goes to show that 2021 is going to be the year of the adaptations. It's just going to be, or maybe
I feel like that's been the last 5 years.
Yeah, I know. I was about to guess. I said that. It's all.
But this is a good adaptations year.
Oh,
The ones we're keen for.
yes, that sounds.
I also have Dune back there to read in a similar note.
Well, that's been pushed back. You've got extra time. It's not until October.
I needed that.
Yeah.
I also have also a side note, The Way of Kings, Brandon Sanderson.
Oh yeah.
I've heard is pretty damn good as well. I think the 4th book of that has just kind of come out. So 4th book, I need to get started on that one as well.
Wow, you have a large list of books to read.
That's just one genre.
I know, wow. But
Which leads me, I guess, into the book I want to read coming up after this. It's called The Sight of You by Holly Miller, but this is more of a fiction, like a romance fiction book. So that's kind of my other pleasure is modern contemporary fiction, but I'm a bit of a sucker for the romance ones. So the concept behind this, what hooked me in was it's kind of, would you choose love if you knew how it would end? So I think the concept behind this book is that there's 2 characters who kind of fall in love, but one of them, Joel, has the ability to, when he dreams about the people he loves, the dreams come true. So he dreams, Joel has the dream of Kelly he's feared the most, and each must decide, can Kelly stay knowing her fate? And if her days be numbered, is there a life she is meant to live? So it's kind of like a really, a story about, I guess, 2 people in love, but one has the ability to know the fate of it. And do they choose to stay in this relationship knowing this fate? It seems to have a little bit of a supernatural twist on it, which I don't mind. But that's in my very long list of coming up ones that I'm pretty excited for.
I feel like it almost might be the basis for a new episode for us to do, all the books we want to read, because every single time I go on this podcast, my to-be read list goes longer and longer and longer and longer.
It keeps building, mine does. I don't have enough hours in the day.
I don't know, I feel like with that concept, to me, that's a fairly easy answer. Like I would go ahead with the relationship, right? Like,
yeah, I think the concept is these 2 like kind of people where he has sworn off love and she can be his second chance, and for her, he is the love she's always dreamed of. So it's these 2 really iconic perspectives of love that people have, where thrown into the mix is potentially, I'm not sure I haven't read it, but a devastating ending. And I guess it's just the power of love and those little moments that build up to it, which I think is an always nice read, especially after a trilogy fantasy book.
Oh my goodness. I love your recommendations all over the place, and I love it.
You know it.
I will now throw over to you, Mark, and I'm expecting the answer to be an extreme sci-fi or an intense horror thriller, given your previous record. What have you been reading?
Okay, so last time I was on the show, I mentioned a book that I was going to read, and I am pleased to say that I've now read it, and it is The Only Good Indians, which is by Stephen Graham Jones. And I know this is a podcast, but we're looking at a video now. Check out how cool the cover is.
I know,
wow.
That's gorgeous.
Yeah.
That is beautiful.
Ooh.
There have been a lot of good covers this year. I know this is not sorry to be sidetracked to your thing, but there have been a lot of really nice covers this year. I recently got to look at a physical copy of The Living Sea of Waking Dreams.
Oh, it's gorgeous.
Oh my god. And then the beautiful, like, after you open up the dust cover and everything's gorgeous. But I'm sorry, sidetracked. Keep going.
So this book is an intense horror thriller. Well predicted, Nick. And I really enjoyed it. So the story is about these four friends, and they're Native Americans, and they're when they were young, they trapped a herd of elk and shot them all. And 10 years later, one of these elk, who was pregnant at the time and had a little baby elk inside her that she tried to protect, is coming back. The spirit of this creature is coming back to get revenge on each and every one of them. And it sounds like a very silly concept, this elk is coming back, but the way that it is written is so good, and the haunting that happens of these characters and the brutal revenge that this creature is after is just so dark and gut-punching and just bleak and violent, and sometimes you just need that. Like I personally find that quite a good thing to read when I'm like particularly stressed. I like to read stuff about like this kind of stuff happening. But it's so interesting the way that it's structured as well, because you kind of start off reading it and thinking it's going to be about this one character, but then it almost turns into a bit of an anthology. Like it starts following different people, and you kind of see. You start to even see from the creature's perspective what it's after, and without giving too much away about it, there is actually quite a satisfying ending here. And I think with horror, a lot of the time, people have great concepts and then don't know how to end them, and it gets a bit ridiculous. But I think this actually sticks the landing, and I was very, very pleased by it. And there's just I don't know. There's a warning. There is violence against animals in this book, obviously, not just the deer, but also violence against a dog at one point as well, which I know some people aren't fans of. So it's very dark and bleak and disturbing, but really well worth it if you want a quite unique, interesting horror novel. So that's The Only Good Indians. And the other one that I'm reading at the moment is I've picked up A Head Full of Ghosts by Paul Tremblay. So Paul Tremblay is probably best known for his book from a couple of years ago called The Cabin at the End of the World, which is about a family who are staying in a cabin by the lake, and then four mysterious strangers rock up at the door and tell them that they must make a sacrifice or the world will end. And it's about kind of what happens there. It's really, really, really cool book, and I highly recommend that. This one is a really interesting modern twist on the old haunted house tale. So I was inspired to pick this up because I saw The Haunting of Bly Manor over the weekend, and I was like, oh, haunted house stories, what else have we got? So this is an interesting modern spin on it, in that the family at the center of the haunting wind up inviting a reality TV show into the home to kind of record the haunting or the possession or whatever's going on. So it has this interesting kind of modern twist to it, where there's a camera crew there, and it's not just that the camera crew kind of and the TV show adds the element of kind of just having that modern technology to it, but it actually kind of changes the dynamics of the family and how they interact with each other, and all that kind of stuff. And the way that it's structured, again, is really, really interesting. It starts off with kind of telling the story backwards, like as a flashback in the future, and it's Yeah, it's really good. I'm about halfway through, and I'm really, really thoroughly enjoying it. Some really, really creepy, horrific stuff in it as well. No animals have been injured so far, but one of the kids gets it, so that's
That's totally fine. That's fine.
yeah. And
Animals are safe, right?
it's also got this demonic element to it as well. So if you're a fan of things like The Exorcist or The Exorcism of Emily Rose and things like that, then this is also, there's a lot for you to enjoy in A Head Full of Ghosts by Paul Tremblay. And he's just a fantastic writer anyway. And I would urge anybody who is a horror aficionado to get a copy of The Cabin at the End of the World as well, because I love that book. So yeah, that's what I'm reading at the moment.
I love them, and completely yeah.
Perfect for spooky season.
Yes.
Is this an all year mark or just October year?
No, I do this all year.
No, he's always like this. Every single podcast, without fail, it will be at least 2/3 of his recommendations will be horror, and I don't.
Oh dear.
Yeah, but all good. I love it. Fantastic recommendations. Thank you, everyone. Loving these. All right. You know what time it is. I know what time it is. Let's dive into Book Fight. Okay, so as always, we will need to get a buzzer for everyone, and I'll throw to you first, Arthur. Are you sticking with your word of buzz, or are you going to try get a new buzzer?
No, I'm gonna stick with Buzz. It's a brand now. It's just its own thing.
Yeah, I think we should get like T-shirts and stuff for it made when this inevitably takes off. Ash,
they appreciate it.
Ash, what will your buzzer be?
I think I used Ash last time. Is that cool enough?
That's cool enough. I'm cool with it. We don't take sides on the buzzer front. I will throw also now to Mark. What will your buzzer be?
I'll go with Ghosts.
You're a word.
Yeah. I love it. All right. Are we ready, everyone, for what will be an intense edition of Book Fight? Are we ready? Are we good? Let's do this. Question 1. How many books are there in C.S. Lewis's The Chronicles of Narnia series?
Ghosts.
Yep.
7.
You are correct. And bonus points if you can name them all.
Oh, okay. Let's see. There is The Magician's Nephew.
Yep.
The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe.
Yep.
The Horse and His Boy.
Yep.
Prince Caspian.
Yes.
The Voyage of the Dawn Treader.
Yes.
The Silver Chair.
Yes.
The Last Battle.
Oh, perfect. Off to a flyer, Mark. 8 points straight out the gate. I love it. Don't worry, everyone. Don't worry. All other. No. Don't worry. There are plenty of chances for you to earn some questions back. We have plenty of point opportunities this particular episode. Very well done, Mark. 8 points. Well done. All over the C.S. Lewis. Question 2. Martin Scarsden and Mandalay Blonde are the main characters in which new book out this week?
Ghosts.
Yes, Mark.
Scrublands. Scrublands? No.
No! Wrong!
Oh no! What was it called? The last one in it's the
Trust. Trust.
No.
It's Trust. Yes, it is Trust.
Yeah.
Correct. Trust it is, and that is Trust by Chris Hammer. Was the correct one? Was the answer, which was book 3 in that series. Scrublands being the first. Yeah. Question 3. Which book was the winner of Best Crime Fiction at this year's 2020 Ned Kelly Awards?
Ash. Was it The Wife and the Widow?
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
Very well done. On the board, The Wife and the Widow by Christian White. Very nicely done. Question 4. Name this famous opening line. And my eyes are on you, Mark. If you don't get this, I will be disappointed.
Oh, God damn it.
The drought had lasted now for 10 million years, and the reign of the terrible lizards had long since ended.
The drought had yeah, I know this. And the reign of the terrible lizards had long
It's a
since
very famous novel. Very famous novel.
I know it. I can't like, it's so familiar. It's so familiar.
Throw it out to Arthur or Ash. You guys got any idea?
Okay, Ash. I'm going to go Wild Stab because the cover is sand and you said drought. Is it Dune?
No, it's not, unfortunately.
Right.
Arthur, you got any ideas?
None.
Mark?
I know it, but I can't. I can't.
Oh, no.
I know it.
Going in 3,
Ah.
2, 1. Unfortunately, it is Arthur C. Clarke's 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Oh, that's so embarrassing.
Arthur C. Clarke's 2001: A Space Odyssey that is the opening line of.
That's one of my favorite novels. I'm so bad.
Sure it is.
I've read it like 3 times.
Raph, I'm sorry.
Maybe pay attention next time I read it.
Mm.
Ah,
I'm sorry. It doesn't. Now I know it doesn't matter if he wins or not. You're just going to be angry about your performance in this episode now.
myself.
Okay, question 5. For 1 point each, name all books in Matthew Riley's Jack West Jr. series.
Ghosts.
Okay.
I'm going to give it a go. 7 Ancient Wonders.
Yes.
6 Sacred Stone.
Yep.
The 5 Greatest Warriors.
Yes.
4. I'll come back to 4. Then there's the 3 Secret Cities.
There is the 3 Secret Cities.
The 2 Lost Mountains. And
Yep.
what's the 4th? The 4.
Arthur or Ash, have you got any potential responses here?
Yeah, I'm stumped on number 4 as well.
Yeah, I forgot.
No idea. Yeah, the answer is the 4 Legendary Kingdoms.
Legendary Kingdoms.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well,
I was at the Matthew Riley trivia last night.
Lucky that question didn't come.
And I wrote half the questions.
It all good. I think you're out to a pretty big lead now, so you needed to not get at least 1. So we're about to head into question 6, and this is for 3 points. Who am I? I was born in London, England, in 1912, but moved to Sydney, Australia, when I was 6 months old. I first began writing as a playwright, but then became renowned as an author for writing shifting narrative vantage points, and went on to become one of Australia's most renowned writers. I was the inaugural recipient of the Miles Franklin Award in 1957 for my novel Voss.
Ghost.
And yep,
Patrick White.
Patrick White is the correct answer. Okay, everyone. So we have 2 questions left in this podcast, and Mark, you are out of control right now. Currently, Mark is sitting on 16 points. Ash is on 1. Arthur is on 1.
Is this some kind of record, Nick?
Is there any way
I've ever had?
Yeah, no, this is you might be pushing a record. I think it was you're either close to it or have gone past it. Okay, question 7. I'm expecting Mark to be all over this one. If he's not, if he's not, then he'll be kicking. He'll definitely be kicking himself about
Don't
this
set
one.
me up for failure.
I love setting you up for failure. Okay, question 7. Gandalf's famous line to the Balrog in The Fellowship of the Ring, "You shall not pass," is a direct quote from the book of the same name. True or false?
Ooh. I mean, I'm going to go with false. Oh, ghosts. I'll go with false.
You are correct. The actual line from the book is "You cannot pass," which Gandalf also mentions in the movie. But the actual famous line "You shall not pass" is never mentioned in the book, which is a shame because that would have been amazing. All right, and question 8. Our final question: what novel is the film Slumdog Millionaire based on?
Ghosts.
Yep.
I can't remember the author, but the novel's called Q&A, isn't it?
Yes, it is correct. Clearing up, my goodness. Yes, the answer is Q&A by writer Vikas Sarup is the answer. So let's have a look at the scores, and oh my goodness gracious me, Arthur is on 1 point, Ash is on 1 point. Mark, we really need to do something because you finished with 18 points. And I haven't seen anyone clinically dismantle a quiz as well as Liv did in that one time she had 0 on. And Zia and I think Cass on when she just cleaned up and answered every question. Well done, congratulations.
I'll try not to be too smug. Thank
Well, you didn't get Arthur C. Clarke's quote, so I have that on you forever now.
So, yeah.
Come on, you're clearly not doing well enough, Mark. Come on. So that will bring us to the end of this week's episode of the Weekend Booktopian. The Weekend Booktopian was produced by myself, Nick Wasiliev, and you can access all of the books we mentioned in this podcast down in the description box. While there, you can also head over to the Booktopia podcast on SoundCloud and Apple Podcasts, where you can check out a wide variety of discussion podcasts and author interviews, including our most recent podcast with Matthew Riley and Chris Hammer. Or if you're listening to this on YouTube, head over to our interview section and check out our most recent Booktopia live event with Marley Silver. Thank you everyone for listening, and never stop reading. Thank you for listening to the Booktopia podcast channel. Don't forget, you can subscribe to us on SoundCloud and iTunes for free and get access to hundreds of author discussions, book analysis pieces, and more. Or, if your eyes need a workout, head to Booktopia TV on YouTube. Don't forget, for all books featured in this podcast and for access to a whole bunch of other fun content on our blog, head to Booktopia, Australia's local bookstore, at booktopia.com.au.